I don't think you can do it the way he did it and then go back into that locker room. So that's a problem for Nico. I'm curious to see who gets involved with him genuinely when the portal opens on Wednesday. I would think that this probably goes pretty fast because if he's been being shopped around, he probably has an idea where he really wants to be.
Yeah, I mean,
or who's going to pay him? Yeah.
What?
Or who's going to pay him the most?
Yeah, so UNC is one of the schools that's being mentioned. I don't know how legit that is or not, but yeah, I don't think it's surprising based on what was out there on Friday. And you asked, like, what do you think? Does he show up? And as the show went on, just more and more felt like there's just no way that they can probably repair this based on everything that was floating out there. And so I commend Josh Heupel and Tennessee for as much as they made this decision, not caving to demands and actually taking a stand. Now, I'm not going to give them all the credit in the world because they were part of the problem to begin with. They helped create this situation of NIL where it's like, let's push this rule. And you knew that was going to happen when there weren't firm rules. It's like, who's going to be the teams that try and stretch this? And it was them, and it was Miami. It was various others. So I'm not going to go like, good old Tennessee, you guys saved the day. It's like, no, you're part of kind of creating it to begin with. But I do commend them for taking a stand and not letting one guy basically take the reins of the program hostage, who's not the head coach or the guy in charge. Something needed to be done as far as putting a foot down at some point in this sport. And it was good to see somebody, Tennessee or whoever, put that foot down. Now, how much of this was their decision versus, the family just deciding we're leaving regardless? I don't know. But the fact that they're splitting ways is definitely not a surprise after the way things were going on Friday. And, yeah, it just felt like by the end of the day, the bridge was burned between the two. And who I think they set fire to it on either side. So it's like you can both take credit for it, but it was just irreparable. And so here we are, and he'll be somewhere making millions of dollars, and some coach and some staff will see the potential and not the headache, and Josh Heupel and company will move on and try to find themselves a quarterback, whether already on campus or somebody in the portal when that opens up. And yeah, I think it's something that was on the tracks, and you could see the light coming from a long distance. But then it finally arrived, this big kind of come to Jesus moment of NIL that we all expected would happen at some point. And now I hear today, like I saw a video of Josh Pate, like right before we went on the air about like, oh, this was going on during the playoffs. I'm like, well, where was the reporting if this was going on during the playoffs? Like now it's all out in the open. So apparently this was going on at Tennessee and other places all in December and January. We just never heard about it. So that just adds more gasoline onto the fire that is this lawless world of college sports, especially college football, where there are absolutely no rules basically whatsoever at this point. So, yeah, man, what an interesting story. Definitely an interesting outcome and an interesting decision to be made by him and by Tennessee, and we'll see where it ends, next season.
All right, you mentioned that last year. Tennessee's sideline was full of VFLs and former stars in the football program. Naturally, Iamaleava was the topic of the day almost every day. When it came to 6 players from the 2024 playoff team declined to comment on his exit. Al Wilson, a program legend whose image hangs on the back of Neyland Stadium scoreboard overlooking the Tennessee River, captained the defense. His comment was, I was as shocked as everybody else. The story was, yes, he was actually, it appears based on reports, they were even discussing renegotiating and maybe not playing in the college football playoff, which Tennessee was beaten badly by Ohio State.
Which is not surprising. Because of the leverage that those guys have. It's like why you can't get totally mad at Nico and his family, because they're never going to have greater leverage outside of winning a national title and turning around the next day and saying, hey, we want more money, than they had in this situation where you took all of the reps during spring ball as the starter. You're expected to be the starter, and then all of a sudden the end of the spring ball rolls around. You're going, about that money, by the way, or I'm leaving. And so from a business perspective, they did the smart thing. They leveraged it up to where they had an ultimatum. Now it obviously didn't work out, but it's going to. Somebody's going to pay them a lot of money, and he's going to get paid a lot of money to go play quarterback somewhere else. Whether or not it's what he desired from the beginning remains to be seen, and we're not privy to that anyways. It's another thing about this. We don't know what anybody's even making. It's all just conjecture and valuations and a trust us, kind of a news reporting. So, he'll be fine. I think Tennessee in the long run will be better off. I think that had they caved to his demands, that would have been a really bad look and set a really bad precedent. But to now hear like, oh, this was going on during the playoff, and it wasn't just them, it was other teams, and it's just like, man, this sport is toast if they don't get this under control. I'm sorry, but I love it. But like, if you've got guys threatening to hold out during the playoffs, can you imagine just like the night before, like, oh, the starting quarterback's not going to play in the semifinal because he wants $10 million. Like, what kind of sport is that? I know it's fun for the chaos of social media, but as a fan, I think it just sucks. And hopefully this sets the precedent of where there is a bit more pushback. Whereas we were talking about on Friday, all of the power was on one side of the scale for decades. And it was like the scale was like this. All of the weight was on here with the schools. And then it went the other direction. And now it's to the complete opposite, where all of the weight is on the scale of the players and their representatives. And I'm hoping that by Tennessee at least pushing back a little bit, some of these schools will start to, bow back up a little bit and at least come to more of a balance than what we have currently.
Well, what's the difference between what Nico's father or whoever was doing in his situation that what Rob Wright III's father was doing after signing an NIL with Baylor?
Nico's dad actually went on his real Twitter account and talked and didn't create a burner and then delete it when he got called out for it. That's the big difference to me.
Yeah, that is a stark difference in that. But look, and this is something we talk about, the leaders of college football, of college athletics. And I don't think, based on, we talked to enough athletic directors, that this is not an athletic director problem. The athletic directors are at this point, let's get to collective bargaining and let's do it. The presidents of these schools need to get with it and realize that there is a cure-all medicine for this. Now, it's not going to mean you're going to be devoid of problems, but if you sit down and bargain and you keep fighting and asking for Congress to help, like, how has that worked so far for you?
Well, I do think, Paul, if it's going to happen, it would happen with this government. I think that's what they're holding out for, is that they actually have the people in charge right now that will listen to them. And it's not happening as quickly as we want, but it's a much better shot with Ted Cruz leading the charge than it was with the prior administration. So I think that's what they're holding on to. They're holding on to that, but Ted Cruz's legislative record would tell it differently. I mean, like, it would tell you completely. But I'm telling you why they're doing it. They think that because Ted Cruz is good at pretending that he gets things done. He really doesn't. And most of them don't. Like, he's not alone in that. But I told you guys, like, 19 bills have passed. 11 of them were, let's name this building after a guy. Yes, but you're also talking about the same people that have held out on every single instance. So they're not going to now go, you know what? Yeah, Nico held out. We're going to now we're going to cave and we're just going to do it. Now they actually have a glint of hope that they can actually have the people that will do it. So they're going to hold on to that line. I understand where you're coming from, but they're not going to back down now at this point.
Let me add this into it. You guys are making great points. Darren Heitner, we know Darren. He's from the University of Florida, teaches law, NIL. He actually doesn't negotiate like players' contracts. He gives them advice along with giving agents advice. And pretty much has always been, when somebody from the player's perspective, whatever, is not allowed to do this and that, sue him. What could prevent the Nico holdout? Recognizing them as employees and negotiating a collective bargaining agreement, the very thing that schools have resisted. A CBA would include heavy fines for players who fail to report, restrict their ability to transfer. So why haven't they done this? Why do schools, knowing this will only get worse, not want to have collective bargaining? Why do they not want them as employees? Because they have to pay them taxes? Why? What's the deal? Or pay payroll taxes?
Because they have to share money. That's it. Like they're
getting ready to do that with $20.5 million.
Exactly. But see, the thing is that if the court says you have to do this maximum, then the court's negotiated that for you. $20.5 million. Collective bargaining means that you sign an agreement. It has a finite term to it, which is, in the pros, it's like every decade, right? About every decade or so.
7 to 10 years.
Just roundabout between all the major sports leagues, about every 7 to 10 years. So they want a rule that's in place that is sacrosanct, that's never going to change. Well, again, that's not going to happen because collective bargaining changes and then it ebbs and flows. Like, in the NFL, the owners are way more powerful than the players, and that's clear. In the NBA, there's more balance, but the players have a lot more sway. In Major League Baseball, the owners have been fighting back really hard to their own detriment, and the players, they keep getting in these weird standoffs. So they don't want any of that.
NFL players have not nearly as much power as baseball players.
Yeah.
The NBA, I don't know if it's like 50-50.
There's more balance in the NBA because I think the owners of the NBA, for the most part, understand that this is a really individually driven league as far as personalities go, and we can't put helmets on all of them and pretend that they're just faceless people running into each other. So that a little bit of their problem. The NHL has had disastrous CBAs over their time. I mean, they didn't play for a year and a half, so they don't want that. They don't want to have to go back to the drawing board once a decade and redo this over and over again because they want it to be locked in stone because that's what they always had. So that's why they don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's not just a CBA either. They're hoping for an antitrust exemption.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about with the people that are in charge right now. That's who they could get that from, and that would solve these problems. Or the alternative is a collective bargaining agreement, which is what they would not want to do out of the two if they didn't have to. And the reason why is because all the additional costs. I think what leverage you do have is completely lost because now they are full-blown employees. So just all the stuff that comes with that and the possible effects on other sports because now you're dipping here to take there, whereas before you had this big pot, now you're just paying volleyball or softball or whoever. I mean, now it's across the board employees. So even the sports that don't make money are suddenly probably costing a lot more money because now they're full-blown employees, even though A&T brings nothing monetarily to you. It's now full-blown employee status for a team of how many people are on an A? 60 people for a sport that makes no money whatsoever. That now you have 60 new employees. So I mean that's a slice of why, and it's also just less control again. Now they already are basically on a more even ground as the courts are proving out. But now you designate them as employees. What happens? Union, and then so then you're just losing all control of what little you actually have. And so that's why. So, yeah, they need an antitrust exemption, of which they're going to cross their fingers and hope that they can get that at some point. Or it's the CBA, and that's basically the two options they have. That's what Matt Brown's laid out and talked in these segments, which we should know by now because he's kind of taught us that on a handful of occasions. So that's where we are. That doesn't look like it's the method of what either side's doing is going to change anytime soon. The schools are going to hold out for as long as they can until they can't anymore. And then ultimately, sooner rather than later, hopefully we arrive at a point where if you're a Tennessee fan, you're not worried about your quarterback who's been starting all spring and who you're banking on, whose jersey you just bought's going to, the night before the spring game, say, give me this amount of money or I'm gone. Or during the college football playoff, of which, apparently it was going on a lot more than we thought. If fans were to have known, though, that Ohio State's star receiver is, deciding I'm not going to play unless you give me $5 million overnight, like those kinds of things, I don't think that's healthy for the sport. So hopefully we arrive at a place where everybody can get their cake and eat it too. And make no mistake, anybody who pushes back at all, I see this on social media a lot, which, it's social media, so it is what it is. But anytime you have any critique over the way the system is, it's not anti-player. I see this a lot from, you want to see, you hate the players, or you don't want them to jump around willy-nilly. You hate the players. It's like no,
coaches,
I don't hate the players. I hate the game. That's what I hate. I don't like the way the game is. So that's what I don't like. So don't let people say anytime you have a critique of the lack of rules, say that you're anti-player. That's a BS straw man argument most of the time. But yeah, without those rules in place, apparently it's been more common than we thought. And I guess if nothing gets done, that it maybe be more common across the country. But that's why I think it was important that Josh Heupel, to what extent they made that decision, and didn't go,
well, they made the decision not to pay him more. That's the decision they made.
But I mean, Nico was apparently not answering his phone calls all day on Friday.
No, he ghosted him. Yeah.
So,
and he was at the offensive coordinator's house the night before. They're having dinner, and then he doesn't show. So here's
there you go.
Nico
on Friday night.
Notified his on Friday night, the day after they had met as a team and some players at the house of the offensive coordinator, that he had completed his paperwork. This is the next day after he had met with other teammates at his house and then did not show up for practice.
Yeah. This was, mutual. I don't know. Like it's mutual to the extent of they both were like Nico did this knowing they were moving on and that he was going to move on. He wasn't ever like holding out for more money and going to come back. He was leaving. And you think that if they would have said, okay, here's 3.25, he would leave?
I think very clearly money talks. So, I think he would have listened to that.
When it became impossible to move on together, Craig, is when on Friday they realized that he had lost the locker room the day after he didn't show up for practice.
Yeah, and that was the talk on Friday. And I think we discussed I think players will be understanding, especially if there were players on this very team, although they might be the ones now going to the NFL who were also threatening to hold out during the playoffs last winter. I think those guys would be understanding of the situation and go, yeah, boo-boo, get your money because you're never going to have more power than you do right now. So I think a segment of those guys, but then I don't think walk-ons relate. I don't think, the guys who aren't making $1 million before they've even played a snap relate to that. I think the guys who are like really, believers in the team and going and winning a championship, which is all getting lost, like the idea of team, it's all about how much money can this individual make? And I get it. Like he's got to do what's best for him. But I do think there is a hit to just this idea that we just throw away the idea of the way it hurts the team or the way the team might respond to that. So, I think he probably lost a lot of those guys who are in it for just the actual team building and being a part of a team and not like how much money can we make?
Well, and some of the guys are in it for both, right? They want to go. They want to go to a place where they can make good money and they win and they get better.
Yes.
And so my question, and I asked Garrett and Pierre this earlier, I'm very curious in your opinion, is if you're Nico and you are draft eligible this year, he will be draft eligible in 2026. Is leaving the SEC and Tennessee in a team that's pretty loaded for bear. That was a defending playoff team, like they're in the playoff last year, and going into the portal where you eliminate 15 teams right off the bat right now. Mm-hmm. You can't go to any of those SEC teams, which also all the contenders already have a quarterback.
No, that's right. Do they?
Most of them do. Or most of them, maybe
we
some
don't know
of them.
really. There might be a few that are a little bit, they're not sure because of spring.
Okay, he can't go to Florida, right? He can't do that. So he can't.
He wasn't going to
go. He's not going to LSU. He's not going anywhere. Yeah,
exactly. Doesn't matter. He's not going anywhere there. It doesn't matter. But even if it was available, there's some schools that are like, well, no, we're good. We're already paying a guy $2 million, right? And so he's going to go to maybe UNC, whose roster isn't even close to there yet, not even close to contending in the ACC with the talent that they have on the roster, even though playing for Bill Belichick, you can learn a lot. Mm-hmm. Is that going to be good? So he is, potentially going to go make $4 million this year, but is he sacrificing his best opportunity to make $400 million in the future?
Well, he's a quarterback at Tennessee in the Josh Heupel system. Name me the quarterbacks he's had that have gone on to the NFL and been successful.
Well, he's only been there a short time, but he got Hendon Hooker into the league with a torn ACL, and Joe Milton was the talk of the offseason. So
what about the wide receivers at Tennessee?
That's fair, but who's Bill Belichick gotten into the NFL?
He's the only
the places that he would have to go to do that would be Ohio State or somewhere like that.
Well, but is there a possible knock against a quarterback in a Josh Heupel system the way there was when you were a quarterback and receiver at Baylor 10, 12, 15 years ago?
Maybe, but I don't think he's been there long enough for you to say that.
Well, he's been elsewhere.
But as far as he was at UCF and other places too, as an offensive coordinator and all that. But I don't think that's fair to cast Josh Heupel in that light, considering that he got Hendon Hooker into the league in the second round with a torn ACL, who was a transfer cast-off at Virginia Tech. Nobody thought anything of him. Joe Milton had kind of hit the wall a bunch of places, and he got him into the league. So sometimes it's about Josh Heupel's job is to get them there. It's their job once they're there.
No, it's Josh Heupel's job to win football games.
And Josh Heupel's only obligation is to win enough football games and do that. But once they're there, it's not Josh Heupel's fault anymore.
He's still playing in the best league against the best competition. Yeah. He's doing whatever he's doing. And he's a former guy who made millions based off his high school tape. So if it's all about Josh Heupel getting to the league, then that's already a botched premise to begin with, and he doesn't seem like a guy that's lacking in confidence. So if this were about the NFL and Josh Heupel's whatever supposed lack of putting proof to putting in the NFL, then maybe we would have heard that in the last 72 hours and not that this was all about money. It's never been said this is about his NFL capability as a head coach. That sounds like something that somebody would want to dig up to just try and not make it about what it's really clearly all about.
All right, let me ask you this. I heard all last week when this started to flare up about his stats and what he did. He was actually a freshman. He was a sophomore, but he was truly a freshman. Wasn't that his first year in college? And are people tearing down some of his numbers? 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I saw a lot of references to where a lot of that came as far as who they were playing at that particular